The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month.
Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets. Our pins have character.
Who knew that you could summon a queue over drinks? Are counselors really Picard's greatest fear? And if I was Ricardo, I'd be asking Teresa to make Rios my daddy. Just look at that ship. That's awesome. So take a stroll through the tunnels of Jean-Luc's mind with us as we review this week's episode. I'm Mike Bovia, and this is Discovering Trek Picard. Thanks for joining us on Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe Companion, presented by Fansets. This week's episode brought us the return of Guinan. It gave us some knowledge about Jean-Luc's father, and we see why Talon spoke Romulan last week. But we need to really be able to break this down as a crew, and as you know, that is a roundtable discussion here on Discovering Trek. So this week, we're going to get to spend some online time with Tamia, which is nice, but it's not quite as nice as being able to have spent in-person time with her at Mission Chicago. So Tamia, it's nice to welcome you back to the show, but man, I wish we were still in Chicago all hanging out.
Me too. That was the best, being able to hang out with everybody in person. And, after all this time that we've been on the network together and finally meeting each other all in person, it was just the best. And I miss you guys already.
Yeah. The next day, it was like a major letdown.
Right?
Beside the fact that we had to go to work, everything else after that, too. So I'm going to introduce our next guest now so that Jamie won't steal his introduction. Welcome, Mike Thurlow. How's it going?
Good, Mike. Yes. Let's try to prevent Jamie from ruining any of my thoughts or predictions this week. But if you'd like, we could introduce Mr. Negativity now anytime. And it's great to be hanging around with Tamia again. Even virtually, it's a pleasure to have her on our roundtable.
That's right.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay.
Well, speaking of that game and that player, the aforementioned Jamie Rogers was so negative about last week's episode that I think maybe Q might have found a kindred spirit with him. So
I think I might have summoned Q as opposed to Guinan in this episode.
I know, and you didn't even need a bottle.
No. But I do want to say this though. The lovely Tamia got me such a nice present when we were in Chicago. She got me my Geordi LaForge bear from Lower Decks, and I can't wait to display that on social media. I think it's going to have a nice place right on my drum set. So look forward to those pictures.
Nice. On the drums, baby.
So, Jamie, speaking of social media, why don't you tell everybody where they can find us?
Well, if you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can find us at Discovering Trek, or you can join the conversation on Camp Kittimer. Just answer a few simple questions, and our admins, Haley, Jackie, and Fark will let you in.
This is a reminder that this episode of Discovering Trek provides spoilers for the Picard episode Monsters. If you have not watched yet, head over to Paramount Plus and watch the episode and then head back. Failure to do so leaves you open to spoilers. So I didn't talk to you about this, Tamia. I know in the past you had done the episode intro stuff. You don't have to do it. I've been doing it for the past few weeks because Sabrina and Fran didn't want anything to do with it. So I got no problem doing it if you want me to.
Okay, cool. Take it away, buddy.
Okay. Episode 207 of Star Trek Picard, Monsters, aired April 14th, 2022. It was written by Jane Maggs and directed by Joe Menendez. Talon ventures inside Picard's subconscious mind to help wake him from a coma and face both his darkest secrets and deepest fears. Seven and Raffi go in search of Jurati, whom they fear has succumbed to the monster inside. And Rios struggles to hide the truth of who he really is from Teresa. So, as we do normally, we will find out what everyone's quick thoughts were on this episode, whether they liked it or not. So, Mike Thurlow, you get to go first this week. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I give this episode thumbs up. I really enjoyed the multi-layered approach to this episode, from the way that the separate storylines all played out throughout the episode. Also, just the focus on mental health, and in so many ways, a lot of different topics, from mental health to trauma to even found family came up in this episode, and father issues, daddy issues, I guess we might call them. But no one here has those. But I just thought it was a really well put together episode. It moved along. It was 46 minutes this week, and it just flew by for me. It was never once did I feel like I was being pulled out of the story. My only issue with this episode, and I hate to say this, I am just not a James Callis fan. I know it's great, and there are two negatives here for me. One is that he's kind of like the Kai Wynn of Battlestar Galactica. So as Baltar, so it's really hard for me to get over that, and him crossing over into Picard, although I know it's been done before because the other Baltar was a Klingon in the original series, but in the original Battlestar Galactica. But I just couldn't really. I mean, towards the end of the episode, I did sort of accept it more and more that he was, that the relationship that you see develop, that he's Picard's father. But the way that it played out, I just didn't like him from the start of the episode. We didn't know who he was. He seemed very adversarial to Picard. And so for me, that was the only drawback for the episode. But I guess by the end of it, and I think we're going to see more of him too. Part of my prediction is that there's still more to come on this. And I think that you can definitely see the animosity between Picard and his father, and how that all plays out. So, and when I mentioned daddy issues, I wasn't just talking about Picard and his father. Rios also brings up the fact that he didn't know his father as well. So, but for me, this is a really excellent episode, and it got better and better as I watched it again and again, and got to see the textures and the layers, and also some of the not Easter eggs per se, but like little things that, like the star that actually turned out to be the labyrinth in Picard's notebook, how that was used at the very beginning in the background of the ready room, and then as a physical thing next to him, and then in the notebook. So, but I'll save some more for the rest of you, but definitely a thumbs up. Sorry, that was a longer preamble than I expected.
I was wondering if you were just trying to get everything out there to make sure that Jamie didn't take anything on. I'm going to ride that one for all it's worth after last week. So, so I gotta say, I do agree with you, Mike. It's a thumbs up for me as well. And I gotta agree with something that you said about it offline too when we were talking, is that it grew on you. after a few watches. And I know Jamie hasn't gone yet, but I don't want to say I was confused when I watched it the first time, but I definitely said to myself, what did I just watch? And then after you go back and you've seen it once and you're able to determine some more stuff, it definitely grew on me. And, that's why I give it an up.
Yeah, that opening sequence was very confusing. Absolutely. Very confusing.
That and the solarium part as well. Like when they were painting on the walls, like I was like, what is going on? And it took a while I did eventually realize what was going on, but geez, I thought somebody was tripping when they were writing this. All right, Jamie, negative or positive, my friend?
I'm going thumbs down.
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row. So like you, Mike, the first time I saw this, I was thoroughly confused. I will say it's getting better the more times I watch it, but I'll be honest, it's not what I'm looking for when I want to watch Star Trek. I'm not looking for a psychological, dig through somebody's brain. It's just, it's not what I enjoy watching Star Trek. As I've been able to watch it, I'm able to appreciate different facets of it. And I do like the fact of we're seeing this serious trauma that's obviously affecting Picard and really defines his character. And I like the little wisps of, you heard Chain of Command and Best of Both Worlds, going on. So some of the traumas that have affected him in his life, I like that those things were kind of brought to the front. I do like the fact I actually like James Callis. I didn't, I'm not really sure how to take his performance initially. Like I said, the first time I saw it, because I was kind of confused. In fact, sometimes I think it's Julian Bashir sitting in front of us, Alexander Siddig. Like I actually thought it was Alexander Siddig the first time I saw it. But I do like James Callis. Very happy that Sonny Ozell, the lovely wife of Patrick Stewart, made an appearance, so that was kind of cool. I liked Arguinen using some moments from Q-Who with with her hand gestures. And I like the line that Rios said from Star Trek IV, I'm from Chile. I only work in outer space. So there was moments that I liked, but I just feel like it didn't progress the overall story forward. Where is Q? Where is Soong? Where is Renee? Where is Robert? Right? Why is Robert not anywhere? So I like I said, I did have some major issues. It's not really what I enjoy when I watch Star Trek.
JB, didn't you watch Generations? Robert died in a fire. Why are we talking about that? That's so mean.
I like Generations.
I know. So let me ask you something. So you feel that it doesn't advance the story, the Q and the Soong storyline.
Correct.
Are you okay with how it's advanced what we were all questioning in the beginning about the storyline with his mother?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, I do like that we're kind of analyzing this aspect of Picard, and it's hopefully going to explain why he is the way he is and why he's, and I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of connection where he's afraid to lose people that are close to him, which is why he doesn't form these long-lasting relationships with the opposite sex. I mean, I'm seeing that that's where they're kind of going with this. But I just think it kind of like distracts us from the overall arcing story of where we're going with this season of Picard. It was interesting. It's an interesting take on, psychology and things like that. But it's just, once again, it's not what I'm looking for in a Star Trek episode.
I'm going to follow up on that with you later when we get into our key points. But Tamia, what was your thoughts? Or how did you like this episode, good or bad?
Okay, so I've only watched this episode once, so to be fair, but on that first viewing, it's a thumbs down for me. I agree with a lot of Jamie's points. While I applaud them for tackling this issue of mental illness that they're doing through the storyline with Picard's mother, I feel like it's overwhelming. I feel like they don't know which story they want to tell. And I feel like there are too many balls in the air and none of them. I mean, like I'm going to have faith in the writers that there's going to be a satisfying conclusion. But right now, like, I'm really sick and tired of being in Picard's head. Mm-hmm. I don't need to spend 3/4 of an episode in Picard's head, especially not when there's there's other plot lines going on mm-hmm. that are, to me, a little bit more important. These are the people who are actually trying to save the universe as they know it, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't really need to sit and be stuck in Picard's head with him all of that time. So, I mean, and I can go into it a little bit more later, but I mean, that's my overall sense. Like, I agree with Jamie. There were some points on it that I loved. There were moments that I loved, but overall, I was not happy.
First off, let me say, please don't encourage Jamie. Second of all, though, I'm
great minds think alike, Mike. Great minds.
Oh, that was not an insult to Tamia whatsoever.
Yeah, it's an insult to me. That's what you're saying.
Thinking about what you're saying, Tamia, 3/4 of the episode we're in his head. Yeah, we've really been in his head quite a bit this season. This just happened to be the one where literally we go inside his head. But yeah, you're right. We've seen a lot of this, I guess you could say mental block, if you want, that he's been putting up throughout the season, which has caused us to have these questions that it seems like now they're trying to answer. And I do still see this as being a thumbs up for me, but listening to you and Jamie, it's bringing me around to a thought that I had before of, God, I hope we didn't hit our Picard plateau like we did last year and then start going down leading into the finale. So,
but I think, one of the things I think, this show is called Star Trek Picard. So Picard is the center of this. This is not Star Trek The Next Generation, mm-hmm. So, and the only reason that we're getting this show is because Patrick Stewart wanted to do something different with his character. And I think that's what we're seeing here is the delve into the psyche of a captain who's been a captain who's 90 years old and who's had all these experiences and wants to go back to his roots. So I think that piece of, that's the running line of this show and of this episode in particular. The other stuff that's going on, the others, other adventures, let's say, that are happening around him are kind of the Star Trek element of this, if we want to, kind of break it out. But this really is Patrick Stewart delving into who is Picard, where did he come from, what did we learn, what don't we know about him, and how can we visit that and reflect on how that informs who he is today. And so I really thought it was interesting this week to get that kind of depth from this episode and learn more about why he can't form long-term relationships, why people call him Captain and not a lot of people call him Jean-Luc, which I think, in one of Johnson's, my co-hosts, feelings on Raffi is that he hated Raffi calling him JL. But the thing is that everyone calls him Captain. And so the fact that some other character calls him, by his first name or by his first initials is, just a different way of approaching it. And I think that that's, that for me is what we're here for, is we're here to dive into who Picard is. And as this episode, I feel like this episode did move things forward a lot. One, we do get a lot of information about his mom and that experience, and also about his dad. And to some degree, even a little bit about Robert, like his relationship with his brother. All of this kind of informs that. But we also get, when he comes out of that, we get a cliffhanger with Talon realizing that there's something else going on here. And I have a theory about that for predictions later on. But when he comes out of that coma, he actually has a greater perspective on why Q is making him do this, why this is happening, and how it informs and impacts his thoughts about Q and what's next, which is why we get the summoning of Q with Guinan in the next sort of scene after he kind of comes out of this. But I think if you go back and rewatch the episode, the really crucial scene is when he comes out of the coma and he and Talon are talking. And if you watch that and listen to what he's come to realize, I feel like that is the crux of this episode, but it's also the crux of this season, and can kind of inform your whole idea about what this season is all about.
And that, listeners, is why we do this as a round table, because you get all different kinds of opinions, and no single one of us is right. It's just how we feel.
Well, can I just jump in real quick? Because I really love what you had to say, Mike. Those are all really good points. And and they're all accurate, right? Like, they're all true. My gripe is that I don't need them to take so long to tell me the story about what's going on in Picard. That's what makes me mad about it. Like, and it actually really does make me mad, because it's not that I'm like impatient. I just feel like they could have packed a lot more into the time that they had, that they're using in his head. I feel like there's more that they could have told us. I feel like they're messing with me by dragging it out so much to what I feel like is almost kind of like I can see it coming a mile away type of conclusion. Like,
yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like they're trying to make it this big reveal that's supposed to blow us away and be like, wow. But to your point, like, and I even go even further to say, like, I feel the whole scenario that was created to get inside his mind was a little contrived too. It's like he steps in front of a vehicle and goes into a coma, and like, okay, now we got to go into his psyche and battle monsters, and it felt contrived to me. It was just an excuse to get into his mind to do this. And let's face it, we only get 10 episodes a season, and they got a lot of balls in the air that they got to try and wrap up. And I just feel like, we started with so much momentum the first 5 episodes, and it's like, what's going on? We're running out of steam, and now we're losing time that could have been used to really advance the plot even further. I get it that this is the main focal point, but it's preventing us from looking at some of these other stories of some of these other characters that are driving the plot of this season.
I want to ask one question. Why did they pepper the first couple of episodes with all this DS9 memorabilia and callbacks? Why? I mean, I'm waiting to find out the relevance of all, as Yvette calls them, bright, shiny things that they showed me in the first 2 episodes. None of that has related thus far, and so, yeah, I know that's a different point. But
so the only theory that I had behind that, and I touched on it a little bit in the last episode, is that they seem to be pulling little threads from each series that had to do with going back in time, specifically to the time period that they're in. So, we've gotten the talk about the Sanctuary District and Gabriel Bell. So, you got that part from DS9. They've kind of touched on, they've touched on tremendously the voyage home and going back to the 20th century there. But I mean, overall, you're right. We got the General Cisco line. If you looked down on the on Seven's panel in that episode, there was it Colonel O'Brien, I think, something like that. So there was a lot of DS9 tie-in in the first couple episodes. And you're right. Other than when they were walking through Los Angeles there and seeing the sign that said Sanctuary District, we haven't really seen anything. So, and everybody, that's just the thumbs up and thumbs down.
Please specify how you would like to proceed, sir.
Now to get into the point of the show where we spend most of our time, and that's the key points. So I think we've all kind of, I said last week, danced around it. This time we didn't do any dancing whatsoever. We've kind of dove right into the whole psychoanalysis piece, as that being a major key point. And as I'm looking through my notes here, you've all touched on a lot of things that I wrote down. The fact that Picard is difficult to be open and let people in. He keeps people at arm's length so that because he's afraid that they might see that secret shame of his. The disconnect between him and his father, even at such a young age, that's something that we saw brought out throughout Next Generation and how that story was told as well. So, Jamie, key points for you.
Well,
do you have a bullet list this time?
Well, no, I don't. I didn't have enough time to prepare for the episode. But no, there were a couple things that were really said that really kind of resonated with me as kind of overarching themes in this episode. And, one was when Picard was talking to Talon, and he says, we don't know how it ends, so obviously there's more to this story. And another, kind of topic that I really felt was kind of driven home was there is no better teacher than one's enemy. And we're really trying to figure out, obviously we know Q is his enemy. We know the Borg are his enemy to a certain extent because of what they did to him, but we're really trying to decide as an audience, is his father an enemy? Is his father the monster that he's always envisioned he is through the first 90 years of his life that he remembers? And, I wonder if we're going to see that tide kind of turn a little bit. And it's interesting too, if we think of how Patrick Stewart, his actual life, because I know he's talked about it so much, the abuse and the trauma that, he watched and endured with his real father and how that played such an impact on his life throughout the years. I'm wondering if he's bringing an element of that to the show, that, maybe I can make a little parallel between myself and, the characters that I play. But once again, I'm still struggling with some of these other characters, that their plots weren't driven along. It really bothered me that, Picard wakes up and Talon's basically like, oh, Renee, she's fine. How do we know she's fine? She just watched a man who saved her life get hit by a car, right? And how do we know she's good? I just feel like they swung and missed by not showing these characters, and I'll be honest, I really want to see more of Jurati, what havoc she's wreaking on the streets of Los Angeles. And we got like 30 seconds of her going into a bar and breaking some glass. I mean, I don't know. It just, like I said, and I agree with Tamia so much. We spent way too much time in the brain of Jean-Luc Picard. I really wanted to see where these other characters were. And like I said, I would have liked to see more of like Robert in the equation, how he was affected by the mother's situation and, you know, the relationship with the father. You know, I would have liked to have seen that element a little bit more. So, but like I said, I think there was some really good, those two sentences I really highlighted that are huge major themes in this episode.
So this episode is called Monsters, and I think that is really what we're looking at here is the monsters of our mind, of our past, that, you know, the monsters that other people may have that we don't even know or realize. You have to realize that Picard was really young when his mom was going through this mental illness and has a very different perspective on, he has a child's perspective on what happened with her. And so I think his realization that his he understands his father a little bit better, but I think that's going to change. That may be the most that he's going to recognize that change, because I think what we're going to find out in the next episode is going to, or in the next couple of episodes, is going to kind of even change that bit. But I think that it's, you know, I think, and also Jurati is becoming a monster, I think is also kind of out there as well. So, you know, that piece of the adventure. So we've got a really strong theme here of all the different monsters, you know, the monsters of Picard, the monsters of his mom, the monster that is his dad, Jurati. And then, you know, I think that there's even, stuff that we're not going to get a lot of, but the whole reason we don't know why Rios isn't close with his father. But again, another thing about potential monsters or things that we don't understand about other people. So I feel like it really delivered on the episode title and kind of went from there. So I think that we can all kind of see, which is why I think that there was just enough to get us going to where we're going to end up with Jurati being the monster. So I think that really it's dealing with inner demons, child's perspectives, and also, you know, something you all were talking about a few minutes ago. I know that this is taking time, but it's also realistic. The unraveling of trauma is not something that just takes, you know, one session or, you know, so I think that's why we've seen this develop over the last 6 episodes, is that it does take time for trauma to unravel and to get perspective on it. And I still think that there's more trauma yet to come that needs to be unwrapped and uncovered. So I think that we're going to get more of this, but this is what Patrick Stewart wanted to do. So we have to remember that this is all, you know, because of him. And Jamie, I actually didn't know, I didn't know a lot about his background, so it makes a lot of sense that this is informing him, and also as he's getting up in age, having the opportunity to kind of delve into some of this from a personal perspective as Patrick Stewart, doing this through his art, I think is also a really fascinating piece of this puzzle as well.
I think that's interesting what you were saying, Mike, about it's realistic as far as the trauma goes, because it's funny, the 4 of us were just talking about how Strange New Worlds is endeavoring to tell an episodic story without the characters forgetting the things that have happened prior. And so, you know, this just happens to be the serialized version of that playing out realistically. The other thing I wanted to go back to Jamie's point about advancing character arcs. You're absolutely right. The only ones whose character arcs get advanced in this story is Picard and Rios. I mean, Jurati, you're right, like 30 seconds. Seven and Raffi. I mean, there was a lot that could have, I mean, I know we're restricted within like the 60 minutes, 65 minutes that they would tell the story in, but I mean, they showed the 7 and and Raffi exchange as part of the preview on last week's Ready Room about them talking about the Jurati Rios kiss. And I was like, oh man, that is some good like back and forth that you would expect from people in the positions that they're in together. And that was it. They showed everything there. We got nothing more of that. So, that was a missed opportunity, I thought, because the two of them were just, and I kind of feel like that's been a missed opportunity all season with the two of them. We get them working together and then we don't get to see any of how they're working together, except for racing around Los Angeles in a runaway cop car, which was crazy in itself. But I did like the episode. I don't want to slam it, but going off of some of the thoughts that you all have had, I can see where you're coming from as well.
This has been great because everybody, Mike is bringing the compassion and understanding. Jamie and I are bringing like the realism. Like, can we like write a TV episode, please? That we got this much time. I tell you, well, I'll save it for my the next segment. Never mind. But I just want to say that Mike brought up some really great points that, yes, trauma does take time to heal. So I applaud the effort to show that more realistically, because on the flip side of that is all the times that we've complained about watching Trek and, people go through something really deep and then next episode, they're like, I'm fine. So I just feel like there's a middle ground that could be, that we can find here.
I like, and obviously I don't want people to misunderstand the fact. I love Jean-Luc Picard, and he's my favorite character of all time.
Oh yeah. He loves him.
I love Jean-Luc Picard. And when I do watch this episode, I hearken back to episodes like Family and Chain of Command. Like when I think of Family and I think of that scene where he's sitting in the mud and he breaks down, seeing an episode like this brings that episode more clarity, that moment that he's having with his brother where, I'm getting the feeling that he feels very helpless with what happened to his mother, and I know I'm kind of leading into my prediction section a little bit too, but he feels helpless that he couldn't help her, couldn't save her, whatever, whether it was her life or whatever it was. And, when he got put into a situation where he was captured by the Borg and he's killing all these people and he has no control, it is developing his character, and it makes a lot of sense. It really, really does, but like I said, I just get to the point quicker. I think that's really where I'm going with it. I'm really interested in the other story, the time travel paradox and the sci-fi element. I'm not into the psychological thriller. I'm just not.
Mike, did he steal your prediction?
Oh no, I've got plenty this week, and
he came prepared.
I am fully prepared this week for predictions, but I also, there are some really nice moments. Like we haven't even really talked about Teresa and Rios and that whole piece, and I think it sort of sticks Jamie's and my prediction even more so. That Rios is going to stay in the past. I think that he's really making a connection with this boy and with Teresa that will keep him in the past. And again, I think that all of this, when you think about it, I think all of these little things, there are so many butterflies right now that are happening that I don't think that we're going to clean up the timeline quite as nicely as we hope to. And I also, there are some other moments where, Talon reveals that she's a Romulan. But it was sort of a giveaway with the device she put on her ear that was a pointed ear. device when she went into Picard's head, and we all felt that was probably something that was going to be revealed. And I do love a lot of I love the callbacks to Star Trek 4. I mean, that was probably the minute Teresa turns to him and asks, "Are you from outer space?" I knew exactly what line they were going to use and how they were going to say it, and he delivers it perfectly. And I was just like, "Yes, that was great." I
was just waiting for that. Like as soon as she walked in the room with Talon there, I was like, "There's no way that they can't use that line in this episode."
Yeah, and I think that he, because of all of that, he has to stay behind. He's going to stay behind to kind of keep them on track from not disturbing the timeline, if that makes sense. Now they have so much information. They've seen his ship and everything that they are like, he's going to stay there to just keep things in First Contact when they were abandoning ship, like go find an island and just don't disturb anything, stay out of history's way. I think that he's going to stay to help keep Teresa and her son Ricardo from disrupting the timeline after he's shown them what he has.
He's going to hang out with Mistral.
How did that even really come about, though, them getting on the ship? I mean, did Picard just sign off on that? I'll take him on. No, it shouldn't affect the timeline.
He was busy. He was busy trying to conjure the Q.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that mess. Don't get me started on that mess right
the Q
there.
Or bringing her onto the ship.
That my boy Rios, like Mr. Starfleet of the Starfleet, when Picard first meets him, he's like, "You're Starfleet through and through. I can see it. It's all over you." It's just all willy-nilly with the time.
Yep.
Because he all of a sudden there's no such mission directive anymore. He done lost his head over some woman in the past. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying. I am trying so hard.
But when you think about it, he hasn't had any
with this mess. They are working my nerves. They're working my last nerve.
At the risk of sounding disgusting, he has no blood flow to his brain right now. So.
No, he does not. And I'm like, this is not our Rios. And I just really he's just forget it. Temporal prime directive, whatever. I've never heard of it. Let's just throw the whole book and bring him up to the ship.
Well, you almost,
I'm sorry.
No, but you almost feel like they're trying. Okay, we're trying to make another call back to Voyage Home, where Jillian came on the ship and blah blah blah. But Jillian goes back into the future, so I'm almost starting to lean towards maybe Jillian, maybe they're Teresa, going with Rios.
Yeah, right. And that's they better. Let me just put it to you this way: they better, because otherwise, there's no excuse for this hot mess.
Yeah.
There's no.
Well, I think the excuse is that the Rios has never had a family. I think he shares that.
No.
And he's found someone that he's connected and sees the possibility of family, and
that's the writing excuse. That's why they're writing it that way. But I see where Tamia is coming from. They've written him a certain way already, and so now they're kind of doing an end around with it.
Yeah, and he's got that, and I keep using that Han Solo-esque type thing. And even Han Solo, he loved Leia, but it wasn't like Rios is totally doing a 180 character flip to Tamia's point, complete 180.
We didn't see him this way with Jurati last season.
No,
and he really cared for Jurati. But I do like those little moments between them this season have been really interesting. Those have been interesting moments that I wish we could have seen a little bit more of. I wish I could have seen that dynamic play out more than as opposed to giving him just an entirely new, different love interest. And that would have been a much more compelling storyline with what's happening to Jurati right now in my book. What we think is happening to Jurati right now.
So should we talk about, just to keep this moving along, but should we talk about the end of the episode with Guinan and Picard? And,
can we please?
Oh yeah.
Let's do that.
That's my favorite part.
So before you guys start bringing your thoughts on it, and I have one point that I want to bring up. Did you notice that her summoning bottle is what is in the opening title in the credits?
Yep.
Thank you. That is.
I did not notice that.
That is what I think that's what you've been talking about like all season, Mike. Is that canonical or cone like thing? Yeah, that could be it. Yeah. When I saw it, I was like, "Holy crap! It's the friggin' bottle."
I did not put that. Actually, where I thought you were gonna go was it's also, I believe it's very similar to the "I Dream of Jeannie" bottle.
It is, isn't it though?
It is. So that's actually where I thought you were gonna go with that.
Nope.
But yeah, it's a good callback to the beginning, to the opening credits for sure. I have to, you know what, this time today, I actually, because I wanted to maximize my time of watching the episode, I skipped the opening credits, or I skipped it the second time. The first time I did something else while it was playing, so I could not pay attention. But yeah, now I have to go back and look at that again.
All right, well, away we go. Have at it about Guinan.
All right, Tamia, it's your favorite part of the episode.
Yeah,
go for it.
That's all I have to say about it. Is my favorite part of the episode. No, I'm no, I mean, it was. It actually was my favorite part of the episode. I felt like the writing was the tightest in this scene, and there was and it was just so interesting. Like who would have thought of the cool idea of calling a cue, right? Like it is just
from
the
a bottle,
neatest,
yeah.
Right? From the genie in the bottle,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I just thought that was the neatest idea. And then, I loved the effects of the sound when, as it was coming out, I loved everything about it. I just thought it was so neat. And she was amazing again. Like every time she's on screen, she's so compelling that you have to watch her. And then she has these moments that are so purely Guinan that,
Mm-hmm.
that she just nails, and, little gestures and mannerisms and quirks of the head and sometimes intonations of voice. I love her interaction with Picard. I love their interaction.
It's very conspiratorial, like whispering, right? And it actually reminded me a lot of how, like, their original, what we know of as what we've seen of their relationship. It felt very like, talking in the corner and being conspiratorial, and not conspiratorial in a bad way, but just whispering in the corner to one another. I thought it was very very touching to see that.
You know what else was cool too was how she read the FBI agent. It was very much what we would have expected from Guinan in the future, except so much more blunt here. And you gotta owe that back to the fact that she's 400 years younger. So of course she's not gonna have that same tactful way of bringing stuff out, but again, like you said to me, it was very true to what they had made the character before.
I will say too, I liked one thing I liked about the scene was kind of true to the form of Picard, how when he's on a mission to do something, he forgets about all pleasantries and everything. She's like basically like, hey, no, hello to your long lost friend. No. Let's just conjure he's like all business, it's very common with how his character has been when he gets on a mission or when he's, one track mind. That's how he's going to be.
So the FBI agent, I don't know if you all noticed what the actor is, Jay Carnes. He was in the episode Relativity on Voyager. time ship that was constantly trying to fix time. So
no way, that was him. I knew he looked familiar. I was like,
Yep.
who is this guy?
yeah. I didn't pick up on it right away. I had to see it somewhere else, but it was just like you said to me the whole time. I'm sitting there like, I know who this guy is, but I can't place him. And then that was what happened.
He gives off Mulder vibes from X-Files to me.
Yeah. And now all of that, his dialogue like has a whole nother level of meaning too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of like, okay, that's just great. That's cute. That's really cute.
So the only other thing that none of us brought up goes back almost to the beginning of the episode, how when they were in the solarium there, how his mother said to him that she could see greatness within him and that he would lead others with his words, like the speeches that he gives to motivate people over the years. I thought that was interesting that she didn't talk about how he would be this big strong figure that would would be busting down doors and he'd be the hero of the day, but rather he would be the motivator. He would lead with his words rather than actions the whole time.
Which is who Picard is really from the beginning, from Encounter at Farpoint. He's a very different captain than Kirk. So, he does, Kirk was always considered like the captain of action, and Picard was always more of like this, peacemaker, ambassador, just a different kind of captain. And so he totally fulfills those words that his mother talks about him in that way.
Yeah, and the only other thing, I kind of got a little bit of an Extreme Measures vibe from this episode, the close to the end of Deep Space Nine episode where they go inside the mind of William Sadler. What's his name? The Section 31 agent. I can't remember his character's name. I kind of almost thought it was going to be something like that, where Talon was going to get trapped at some point, especially when the monsters came out and had the chains around her neck. But then it didn't happen. And so all the parallels were lost. Another bright, shiny thing thrown out for us that...
Oh my God, you're so funny. You're like, but then it didn't happen.
Yep.
We'd like to take a moment to talk about Fansets, the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
One of the wonderful privileges that we had to be in Chicago was we got a chance to see Fansets in person, and obviously very close friends of ours. And there was no person that I saw that didn't spend a long time at that Trek Geeks table, because they have so many things to offer, whether it's Star Trek or other fandoms such as Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, Harry Potter, or Rick and Morty.
Don't get me started at how much time I spent there.
Yeah, speaking of, Mission Chicago, there were some great new releases from Mission Chicago, including 3 Mission Chicago pins, a small, a medium pin, and with the medium pin has the background of Chicago, and then we have a glitter Enterprise D large pin from Mission Chicago. They also launched their Master Ships collection with the Enterprise A, and I have that, and it is a gorgeous, gorgeous pin. It is both a magnet and a stand built into one, so the dedication plate folds down. So right now I can just see the Enterprise A floating, but you can also keep it flat, and it's magnetic as well. So it's a great addition to their collection. You can also get some add some Admiral pins to your Star Trek II cosplay with some magnetic Admiral pins. So there's so much there. Head on over to Fansets and put a whole bunch of pins in your cart. There's so many to choose from.
And as a listener to our show, you can receive 10% off your order from Fansets by using the code Trek Geeks. That's TREKGEEKS at checkout. And remember that you receive free shipping in the US on orders of $30 or more.
Fansets. Our pins have character, and we thank Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
The overall message of this episode, and I think we've all kind of touched on our thoughts for it so far, but Jamie, I'm going to let you go first here. Overall, what do you think the overall message was for you?
Well, I go back to those two expressions that we're waiting to see how it's going to end, and there's a lot to be learned here in this mind of Picard, in his psyche. And really, there's no better teacher than your enemy, whether that's his father or that's Q. But we really see that, we're diving so deep into his mind and so deep into his trauma that, Picard's got commitment issues. Let's face it. He's got commitment issues. He's got issues with expressing himself because he's so afraid that people are going to see that dark side of him. So he keeps people at arm's length. So I think this is really about discovery, discovering what makes Picard tick, what makes him react the way he reacts to things. And I can't wait to see more of this discovery that we're going to see in the next few weeks.
Mike?
I think one of the messages, there are two that really stick out to me, is first the found family and choosing who your father figures are or people that you look up to. And for Rios, Picard is one of those people. And I think it's really important that it's a great message to share that you can, at any time in your life, find your family and pick mentors, pick people to look up to help you grow as a person in this world. The other thing that I really resonated with is that you're never too old to work through your trauma and choose a different path. And I think that that's what we're working towards, is the idea that you can work through what's happened to you in the past, look at it, put it aside, or envelop it into you, and then move forward in a different direction, kind of like a new person. So last season, we got to see Picard have a different body as his physical body was deteriorating. This season, we're really seeing Picard's mind deteriorating to some extent due to trauma, and how I think what I'm hoping for is that by working through all of this, he'll be able to form different relationships, become a different person, become a better person. I think he's already a great example on many levels. I think we all have a tremendous amount of respect for Picard as a character, and Patrick Stewart as an actor. And I think that this all contributes to that fact that we can all become better, that none of us are alone in this process, that we can, that anyone can work through this, and that getting unstuck is something that we're all able to do.
I kind of want to dovetail off of what you were talking about, Mike, when it came to family. But from a slightly different perspective, you look at this episode and you see Maurice Picard, and we mentioned it already, from the perspective of Jean-Luc as a child. And how many of us really understood what our parents were going through when we were at that age. So it made me think that, how important it is if we're able to, as we grow into adults, to make sure that we're keeping up that good relationship with our parents so that we can ask those questions. Hey, I remember this happened when I was a kid. What was going through your mind as a parent then? Pick their brain. The three of you saw me in Chicago. I had my dad with me. My dad and I have a good relationship to the point where I've asked those questions before. I had my daughter with me. Same thing. She's not shy about asking me now, what are you thinking when it comes to a decision you're making? But it just got me thinking back to, he, instead of trying to find out what was happening as he got older, he resented his father for the rest of his father's life. And, as we see toward the end of this trip down Picard's memory lane there, like his father said, you always thought I was the monster, but you didn't really know what was happening. It was the monsters within her that she couldn't escape. So, hey, take the time to get to know your parents. Parents, take the time to get to know your kids. And Tamia.
So, I'm just actually, you guys have similarly said what I was thinking about this episode. And I know that I've been pretty harsh on this episode, but and a couple of episodes in this season in Picard. But what I really applaud, it's, first of all, let me get this clear. It's Star Trek and I love it. I will always love it. Even if I don't like some things as much as I like other things, it's still Star Trek and the best thing that I could possibly be spending my time watching, and what they are doing so effectively this season is letting us have these conversations, right? Really giving us a vehicle to have these conversations. I have these conversations with people in my recovery circles. And this is not conversations that I normally ever have outside of those circles. This is not my normal conversation with other people. So it's really refreshing to be able to talk about what's really going on inside of us in a different atmosphere. Because we have a saying, you're only as sick as your secrets. Right. And to me, those are the real monsters that are going on in this episode. And as you both have stated so well, that when you start to shine a light into those dark spaces, they lose their power over you, because those things that hurt us from our past, from our childhood, they're very tender spots inside, and it's very difficult to touch them, to bring them up into the light, to look at them. And there's a lot of strength in doing that. There's a lot of strength that comes from bringing all the muck up inside of us out, and turning it into, something really fertile to grow on. But when we hold on to these little kernels of these things, they can grow and they can fester, and then they can start to have an outsized effect on how we deal with the world and how we deal with ourselves, and so it really, it's a courageous act to look inside. It's a courageous act to come to terms with these things from our past, whether they be things that were done to us or things that we did to other people, those things that we say we're never going to talk about to anybody. Those are the things that we absolutely must talk about, because otherwise we'll never be free. We'll always have those chains around us. We'll always be being chased, and so, I love the fact that even though I have problems with the mechanics of it, I still like the fact that this is what they're examining, and yeah, so the monsters don't always have to win. Right? They might be there, but they might not. They don't always have to be victorious.
You know what's interesting too, that I was just thinking about as you guys were kind of talking about your points in this episode, how Picard kind of thinks about everything we've seen up to this point that's canon. His memories of his parents are always when they're older. Like you think about Where No Man Has Gone Before, he thinks about his mother older, which I'm assuming we're getting a retcon pretty soon here. And then you think of his father in Tapestry, how his father told him how disappointed he was, that you joined Starfleet. And, he always felt like he wanted to, try to please him or keep him happy. And then I think of like an episode, I can't remember the name of it. It's the one with the Hunt for DNA program there, where
Chase,
the Chase, yep, where he says to Beverly how Richard Galen was like a father figure to him. He almost kind of wished he was his father. It's interesting how we're seeing the kind of the puzzle kind of get put together, and how it's kind of shifting of how he used to really look at them when they were older, and their disappointment at, like his father's disappointment of what he turned out to, the kind of seeing this younger side, this traumatic event that took place. It's interesting. That is interesting to me, despite the fact that I don't like the episode.
And I think the cool thing too, Jamie and Tamia, you both commented that you didn't like the episode, but I mean, the both of you have had a lot of good remarks for parts of it as well. So, just like you said to me, just because you don't like the episode overall, it doesn't mean that, it brings down everything, and that it's, what are the internet terms we see all the time? Lazy writing, stupid crap like that. These people get paid for a reason. They're not always going to hit a home run, just like a baseball player.
What's weird though, too, like Laris, the fact that it was Laris that was the one playing around in his brain too, is kind of interesting when you think about that fact. Somebody that looks coincidentally like Laris is the one person that is seeing this deep, dark secret about him.
Well, two things. Number one, to go back to what Mike was saying, like, yes, they're not always going to hit a home run, but also the fact that like this is so subjective, right? Like this is somebody else's. Like this is a home run for Mike. It's just not a home run for me, and so it's totally subjective. And number two, Jamie, remember my first prediction that when we first started, and I said that moment, that missed moment, is going to be Laris is going to be the key, to the whole shebang. I'm still holding with that. I just skipped into.
I think you're on a great wavelength there, because, if she's seeing that, it is nothing. He's got nothing left to hide from anybody. That's his deep, dark secret, and if she's truly his love, or, that most important person, and she's kind of seeing that, I'm still trying to figure out, is this Laris? Is it not Laris? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to figure that whole piece out, but I'm waiting to see how they wrap that up somehow.
Well, at the very least, it's, like he said, they staggeringly look alike. So at the very least, it'll give him that comfort level once they get back to be able to open up, because now, he's with somebody there. It's like that. It's like riding a bike again. It's like that warm, comfy blanket. You are comfortable with that person. It's so much easier now to open up, because she obviously doesn't know in the future if, we're saying Talon is Talon and Laris is Laris and never shall the two meet.
Laris, I shared my deep dark secrets with your great grandmother.
Yeah.
We're good. Let's hook up.
Oh man.
Oh, grown.
Swipe right for Talon, swipe left for
Oh God, can somebody please rescue us?
I know, really.
Shall we move on?
We're
yes,
gonna
shall we do
to.
shall we do some awards?
Starfleet Command is proud to present you the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor.
Okay, our awards section. So this is where we award people in the episode that we think did a great job or a theme. So I will hop on this one first. I'm going to harken back to the latest Trek Ranks episode where they talked about their top 5 Star Trek crushes. And, I've made no secret that this season's is Jurati in Allison Pill and our favorite Momulan, Orla Brady. And since Jurati was only in about 30 seconds of this episode, it's got to go to Orla Brady this week. But beyond that, I've thought that she was a great character from the beginning. She does a really good job in this episode as an actress, because you think about it, most of her time acting in this episode is with a child actor. She's really bringing out that care and concern that you would expect an adult to give to a child in a case like this. Calming him down in these areas. Obviously, that's script right there, but it's also got to be delivered. So, Orla Brady there. I thought James Callis, despite who he was in other things, I thought as the therapist and then the father, he did a pretty good job as that, if you can separate who he was prior to this as a character. And then finally, I mentioned this before, I've seen online people saying that the depiction of trauma in this episode and how it was dealt with by Picard's father, like it never should have aired. Like people have been saying that online, that this was a terrible episode and that it's scarring people. Now, look, your trauma is your trauma. If it gives you a problem, then yeah, absolutely, I would be upset by that too. But we talked about the realism that is kind of being portrayed here, and you kind of see, going back to the Maurice character, you're seeing here a husband, a father who does not know how to deal with what his wife is going through, what his child's mother is going through, and is just trying to protect both her and Jean-Luc. And, maybe the way he went about it is not the best way. I can agree with that totally, but it was definitely realistic, I think, in its portrayal of how someone could handle that, especially someone like Maurice, who we know from, just discussion about him in episodes, was very quick to dismiss whatever the modern way of doing things was, and maybe modern therapy was something that she needed, and he didn't push for that. Who knows? We don't know the whole story, but I thought that was good.
He did say, though, that he tried to get her help and she didn't want help. He did make that statement.
Okay,
in the episode.
I do remember that now. Okay,
so I mean, maybe they'll define that further.
Yeah, maybe
in a later episode.
Maybe.
But that's also Picard's perspective on, what his dad may have said, or, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's necessarily exactly what his father said to him or not. It's always hard to tell what's real and what's not. Yeah.
Who knows? Jamie, your medals, your awards.
All right. I'm going to go.
Are you going to do better than last week is my first question.
Maybe 50-50.
Oh, okay.
Does the teacup get an award?
Nope. So I got a shout out to Ito Agari. I think she did. I think her scene, I think Tamia may have said this point earlier in the episode. That was like the best written scene, the best, the one that had the most to chew on, I think, was that last scene with her and Picard. So I really want to give it to her. And my second award goes to Sonny Ozell and the band. So I said 50-50.
That's worthwhile. Hey,
Exactly.
I'm good with Sonny Ozell on that. So we butchered Ito's last name the last time she was on. So I'm just curious, Jamie, how many times did you watch The Ready Room to make sure you got it right?
Once.
Okay.
I still think I got it wrong.
Oh,
Did I get it wrong?
I have no idea. I didn't watch The Ready Room, but I know she was featured. And I just know because we were all asking each other how you say her last name.
I think it's different than what I'm saying. I'm going by how we used to say it. But it's funny you bring up The Ready Room with her because she was the one that brought in the Q Who. She was the one that said that she wanted to do that in the episode. So I thought that was kind of cool that is cool. She had researched that and said, when I'm doing The Conjuring, I want to do that. So
awesome.
That's what I got.
Mike?
So I'm going to echo yours, Mike. Orla Brady definitely killed it this week. I really loved her in it. And I loved her. My second award goes to Dylan Van Halley, I want to say, who plays young Picard. I think that the way that she worked with him in this episode was really, really great. And my third award goes to Madeline Wise, who plays Yvette. I think she's the whole scene where she's playing the queen and Dylan's playing the prince, I think was just amazing. Just the way that they were interacting with one another. It felt very real. It felt like they were family. It just resonated really well with me. They did a wonderful job with that. And I think that, working with child actors is not always an easy part of an acting job. I've heard from a lot of actors. So, the fact that Madeline and Orla both had to work with Dylan, I mean, he's a tremendously young, good actor. So, but kudos to both of them for the work they did with him this episode. So, and Ito as well, she did amazing. But I don't want to steal Jamie's thunder. Unlike him stealing mine. So.
Oh, don't worry. You'll have your chance, Mike. Tamia?
So my first award goes to Ito. I mean, she's just boss. She's ruling every moment she's on that screen. I don't want to stop looking, and she always takes me someplace new and unexpected, in her delivery. Like there's nothing predictable about what she's doing. And yet there are many familiar things that give me grounding too in the character. So I think she's just doing a phenomenal job. My other medal goes to James Callis because I totally forgot about Battlestar Galactica. I was just not like a huge Battlestar Galactica fan. Like I watched a few of the new ones and I was like, oh, okay. And then I got bored and I just sort of went away. I know, like I'm not supposed to admit it and somebody's going to try to take my geek cred, but you know, it's just the truth. It didn't hit me like that. So when he came on the screen, I knew that they were like, hey, here's this guy you're supposed to know. Like they sort of gave him this moment, right? Like that you're supposed to be like, oh, no way, dude. And I was totally like, okay, there's this guy, whatever, you know, but so I was looking at his character pretty cold and I loved how I was on unsure footing with this character. I didn't know if this character was going to be a supporting influence for Picard or going to be an antagonizing influence, and at times was both, you know. So I just really liked that portrayal and the fact that finally at some point I was in one of these episodes, I was feeling something different and new. What's the name of the actress again who plays his mom?
Madeline Wise.
Madeline Wise, thank you. And the young man who plays young Picard is what'd you say, Daniel?
Dylan Von Halley.
They're both amazing. And to the casting agents, the casting crew that cast the two of them as mother and son did an incredible job because they really look like they could be mother and son. You know, so and I, you know, as always, Alison Pill gets one from me. Like, and you know, I'm not seeing a lot of her, but every moment that I see of her is just fascinating. And how she's embodying this dual identity of Jurati and the Borg Queen I think she's killing it every time. I could have done without the singing last episode, but that's just me. And not because of her voice, just because musical.
Why? Yeah, exactly.
Why? Exactly. But yeah, but I think she's killing it. So that's it for me.
At some point, I kind of feel like not even Alison Pill, but maybe just the red dress itself is going to get an award this season.
The red dress is a character all on its own.
That's
like,
right.
The red dress
right.
is, yes.
And can I say, as I'm listening to all of you do these awards, it's going through my head. I can't think of any other Star Trek that we've had prior or present where so many of us have started saying they should do a series just based off of this character, or they should do a series based off of these couple of characters. Like you were talking about Ito and her portrayal of Guinan and how, you know, you can't get enough of her. And I'm thinking to myself, we could have a young Guinan series.
Young Guinan. Let's start the movement. We're going to start it. Hashtag Young Guinan.
Yeah.
Series. Hashtag Young Guinan series. Let's be specific.
Yeah. And I think Ito would be 100% on board after hearing all the background work that she did for the part. And I'm going to say honorable mention on my list. I know I'm cheating here, but hey, I'm running the show. I get to do that. Sol Rodriguez and Santiago Cabrera together. The way that they play off of each other in this episode, just so good. And I hope we get to see more of that over the remaining episodes.
I'll second that honorable mention.
I will third that. They were on my list, but I decided to shorten my list.
Whoa, Jamie's shaking his head yes too.
No, I agree. I like how she plays the like you talking about Teresa, right?
Yes.
Is that the actual? Okay. I like how she plays the I'm going to kill you if you do this. You know, she plays that. So she was picked. That actress was picked so well. Like she just portrays that tough, Latin broad,
and they're the way they play off of each other in these scenes in this episode. It's like they are a married couple already, or a couple
great chemistry, great
right,
chemistry.
or a couple that's been together for so long, married or otherwise, that just knows each other in and out already and can just throw the barb, and they know that it's not meant to be hurtful. It's just like, hey, watch out.
Yeah. And I hope I'm not making Tamia upset when I say this, but like last season when it was Rios and Jurati, I had a hard time. Like, to me, they didn't have the same chemistry. I didn't see it.
Seemed like it was more of a fling.
Yeah. It was like thrown together, and it didn't click for me, but these two click. These two they did a nice casting job to find his match.
Library computer, data being received.
And what will surely go down as the most popular section of the show, due to the scandalous back and forth of two of our co-hosts, we reach our prediction section of the show. And due to things that occurred on the last episode, Mike Thurlow, you get to take the lead on predictions.
Yes. All right. So I have some big ones. First of all, that door banging is coming back. That is my first prediction is that Jean-Luc let his mom out of the room, and whatever happens subsequently, she dies. And that is the pinnacle moment where Jean-Luc's father, Maurice, and him break, essentially. He thinks he's saving his mom. He loves his mom. He wants to, take care of her, and doesn't know what he's doing, and has unlocked her, and she kills herself in some way. So that's my first prediction. My second prediction is that with all of these butterflies, they are actually creating a separate timeline. Like, it's already been created. It may not be the timeline that we saw in the second episode, but it is the timeline that we saw in the first episode, which produces the Borg Queen. So that rip in time is actually from this version of events, because at some point they won't be able to stop Jurati from becoming the Borg Queen. And so the Borg Queen actually takes over Earth, and there's that split in the timeline somehow that comes full circle back to the first episode, where they break through in order to conquer the original, what we'll call the original timeline. So that's my second prediction. My third and final prediction is that Q is either imprisoned or dying, which is why the conjuring did not work. And so what little we've seen of Q is him projecting himself using whatever energy is left back in time to teach Jean-Luc this lesson. And that season 3 of Picard is going to be the Picard and crew, including the original Next Generation crew, going somehow into the Q continuum to save Q, because of what he learns, because of the lesson that and this whole experience that Jean-Luc is having, where he's learning to know himself, but he's also realizing, I need to know my enemy. And his enemy, he always thought that Q was unknowable. And so whatever lesson this is teaching Jean-Luc, unlocking his trauma or whatever, will actually lead to him going to save Q. So those are my 3 predictions.
Mike Thurlow swinging for the fences this week. So since he did that, we're going to have Jamie follow that one up.
Of course you would.
Mine are crap, so I got to go somewhere.
Well, I think my prediction is very similar to Mike's. So, I guess you can say he upended me, but I know I was alluding to how we remember Picard's mother, and where No Man Has Gone Before, that she's older. I do feel like we got a retcon coming, similar to Mike Thurlow's point. I do feel we're going to see her death somehow coming in one of the next few episodes. And he's either going to blame his father or he's going to blame himself. And I think you bring up a good point with the banging. I'm kind of in the same wavelength as you, as that's her trying to get out of wherever she's trapped, and that's going to be the decision that, like I said, ultimately puts that rift between him and his father. He's either going to blame himself or he's going to blame his father for her death. The other thing I think is going to happen is I'm now really becoming invested in this idea. Obviously, we know with Jurati being the Borg queen and how that's kind of taking a mind of its own. I'm going to go one step further now, and I'm going to say that the La Sirena is going to be that Borg ship that we saw in episode 1. It's going to be the Borgified, it's going to be the La Sirena Borgified, and she's going to take that ship back to episode 1. That's all I got.
He's really trying to cut you off at the knees, Mike. Like he couldn't even just take what you gave. And
I'm good with it. That's a solid prediction, Jamie. I will give you credit for that. Absolutely.
So
I'll be the bigger man here, Jamie, and admit it.
Ooh, them's fighting words.
Yeah. So my prediction, I mentioned it offline last week. My thought is that Teresa is obviously the Gillian Taylor of this series, and her and Ricardo will be going back to the 25th century with Rios to have the Cristobal family aboard the USS Stargazer, because that has to happen so that after Picard is over, we get the adventures of Rios and the Stargazer and his crew. And since I know she adores the predictions round, I let Tamia go last.
Oh, God, I really hate this.
I know, so do I.
I have no meaningful predictions. I really don't. I really hate trying to look forward in a series, because I really like to take it just like I'm reading a book. Like, I don't know what's coming next, and I want it all fresh. I just want to see it and experience it in the raw. If I make it, my only prediction is the Groner type of prediction, which is that we are not going to finish the story in this season, and that it will be carried over to next season. And that this is just a placeholder season, the middle part of the story. That's all I'm giving you.
The Empire Strikes Back chapter.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I got one more prediction for you. Next Thursday, there's going to be an episode that drops at 3 a.m. on the East Coast. That's my prediction. I can guarantee that that's going to happen. Speaking of that episode, with time running out before the Europa mission, Picard and Guinan must free themselves from FBI custody. Seven and Raffi come face to face with Jurati and the horror of what she's become. Episode 8 is entitled Mercy, and we'll be covering it here for you on Discovering Trek Picard.
Don't forget that you can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Get access to unedited audio of all our podcasts and a lot of other perks. If you'd like to support this and the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam on over to patreon.com/trekgeeks, where subscriptions start as low as $2 a month.
And for more great Star Trek discussion, please check out the other aforementioned member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, there is Trek Geeks, Rewind, Politrek's 5-Year Mission, a little show called Deep Space Pride, Drawn to Trek, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, The Greatest Sisters on the Planet, the Sci-Fi Sisters, Science Station 2 with The First Link, and the newest addition to the network, Con Pod, which is all about Star Trek conventions. You can find all these shows and where to listen on trekgeeks.com/listen or by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app.
Little, I say in my best Commander Worf's voice there.
Very nice.
Very
I like
good.
it.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Trek like we do.
I profess I am not a merry man.
We got to take a walk in Picard's child-sized shoes to see what has plagued him all these years. But it seems like just as he's developing a plan, the walls come crashing down around him. What is going to happen next for him and Guinan? Again, tune in to Discovering Trek Picard next week as we discuss the episode. To close this one, I'm going to quote Picard from last season with some advice that he should have followed. Fear is an incompetent teacher. Until next time, never stop discovering.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.